Very good morning, good evening, or good afternoon. So today we are going to cover one of the important topics of the Income Tax Act, which is the residential status in case of an individual. So we are going to see different topics like what is residential status, why determination of residential status is important from income tax point of view, and how to exactly determine the residential status. So first we'll start with key factors determining the tax impact. So like whenever you are going to pay the income tax, so there are different factors which determines your overall income tax impact. First is the year of income because based on the year of income you will get certain deductions, certain exemptions, and the rates of tax will be dependent on the assessment year. Second is the type of the person. So in case of individual, there are certain rebates which are available. Similarly, in case of company, there is a different tax rate. So basically, your tax liability depends on your type of person as well. And third is the residential status, which I've highlighted in bold deliberately because this is one of the key factors which determines your overall tax impact or the tax liability. Then four is the nature of the income or the type of income. So if it is a business income, you will get certain deductions under different sections. If it is other source income, it will be taxed as per different rates applicable to different other source incomes. So these are some of the key factors which determines your overall tax impact. So because we are focusing on residential status, so we will be having a look at how residential status determines your overall tax liability. So, what is the importance of residential status? So, the taxability of an individual under Income Tax Act is based on the residential status. Like I explained in the earlier slide, your tax rate, your income, which will be taxed in India, will be dependent on your residential status. Now, residential status should not be confused from your citizenship status because citizenship is something which you get by birth or by virtue of your passport. But a person could be a resident in India and he could be a citizen of Japan. Similarly, a person could be a citizen of Japan and he could be a resident in India. Because Income Tax Act is has its own rule to determine your residential status. Then third, residential status for different types of person income tax is determined differently. So like we will be focusing on determining the residential status only for individuals. So for HUF, for companies and for other categories of person, it is determined differently. Then fourth, the importance of residential status is it determines the income which shall be taxed in the hands of individual. So, for example, if I am a resident in India, resident and ordinarily resident in India, then my global income. So, even if the income which I earn, let's say from Singapore or from Australia, will also be taxed in India. There are different provisions for taxation of it. But in the case of non-resident, only the income which he has earned in India or had through the rise in India will be taxed. So primarily it is based on the residential status. So hence it is of profound importance to determine the residential status before declaring your income to the income tax department because your taxes and exemptions and deductions will all depend on your residential status. Then types of residential status in the case of individual. So an individual could be a resident or a non-resident or a deemed resident in India. So now what is meant by resident? We will have a look in subsequent slide how we will say that a person is resident in India. Non-resident simply means a person who is not a resident will be termed as a non-resident. Then there is another concept which has been brought into effect by Finance Act 20. This is a concept of deemed resident. So, deemed resident, I've already defined, means a person who is a citizen of India and who is not liable to tax in any other country. And if the total income other than foreign sources, that is the income which he has earned in India, exceeds 15 lakh and there is no tax liability in other countries, that is, he has not earned any income from foreign sources, then he does not have any tax liability also in other countries. And his income exceeds 15 lakh rupees, he will be termed as a deemed resident in India. So there are three types of residential status which are applicable in case of individual: resident, deemed resident, or a non-resident. Resident could be further subclassified into two statuses, that is the ordinarily resident and not ordinarily resident. We will have a look at the same in the subsequent slides. Now first, who is a resident and who is a non-resident? So your residential status is primarily dependent on the number of days you have stayed in India during the relevant financial year for which you are liable to be assessed. So the law says, or section 6 says, if your stay in India is 182 days or more during the previous financial year, then you will be termed as a resident. Okay, so let's say if I'm declaring my income for financial year 23-24 and my stay in India during the financial year 23-24 is 182 days or more, then I will be termed as a resident for that particular financial year. Now, I say I was not there in India for 182 days. Then the law has prescribed a second condition. Okay, if you have not stayed in India for 182 days or more during the financial year, so there is a second condition which says if you are there in the financial year in India for at least 60 days, and prior to that financial year for four preceding financial year, if you were there in India for at least 1 year or equal to 365 days, then also you will be declared as a resident. You will be termed as a resident. Okay, so there are two conditions for a person to be called as a resident. Either his or her stay in India during the preceding during the financial year is 182 days or more, or if not, then in that particular financial year 60 days or more, and the preceding four financial year is 365 days or more, he will be termed as a resident, so which you could see there. However, if your stay is less than six, if you do not fulfill any of these conditions, you will be termed as a non-resident. So this is what is mentioned over here. Then, over 60 I marked one star. So there are certain exception to the 60 days rule. That is, in case of following persons which are there on this slide, the person will be termed as non-resident as soon as his stay is less than 182 days in the financial year in India. So these are persons are, first is Indian citizen leaving India as a true member of Indianship, or a person citizen of India leaving India for the purpose of employment, or a Indian citizen or person of Indian origin who has come on a visit to India, and the total income of that person or person of Indian origin, excluding foreign source income, does not exceed 15 lakh rupees. So if the income is up to rupees 15 lakh from India he has earned, and he has come to visit India and the stay is less than 182 days, he will immediately be declared as non-resident. This is what I mentioned. In simple words, for the above category of individual, if the stay is less than 182 days in India during the financial year, they shall be immediately termed as non-resident. When you need not look at the additional condition of 60 days. Stays 182 days or more, resident. Stay less than 182 days, and these three category of individual, they will be termed as non-resident. Now, what is the meaning of person of Indian origin? I have explained in the further slide. So in case of person of Indian origin, you need to look at some additional conditions. So in case of person of Indian origin, more than the state, the residential status is determined based on his total income excluding foreign sources income. So we already looked at in the previous slide, if the income is up to rupees 15 lakh, and if the period of stay in India is less than 182 days, they will be termed as non-resident, and if the stay is more than 182 days, they will be termed as resident. However, if the income of such person who is coming to on a visit to India exceeds rupees 15 lakh, although in income we include only the income excluding foreign sources, if that income exceeds 15 lakh rupees, then the condition of 182 days shall be replaced with the condition of 120 days. That is, if the stay in India is less than 120 days, they will be termed as non-resident. And if the stay in India is less than 182 days but more than 120 days, they will be termed as resident. They will be termed as resident. So primarily it is based on their income. If the income is up to rupees 15 lakh, then they go to normal condition. But if the income exceeds 15 lakh rupees, excluding foreign source income, then the condition of 182 days has been replaced with the condition of 120 days. So we need to look at the condition of 120 days. However, in this case also, if it is more than 120 days, then you need not even look at the income. They will be directly termed as resident, as they will fall in the normal criteria of 182 days. Then, as we looked in the earlier slide, resident would be further classified into a ordinarily resident and a not ordinarily resident, because the tax implications are different for not ordinarily resident and ordinarily resident. So for ordinarily resident, global income is taxable, but for not ordinarily income, that is not the case. The case is different for not ordinarily resident. So now you already know whether a person is a resident or a non-resident based on the conditions we have seen in the previous slides. Now we will further look at if he is a resident, whether he is a ordinarily resident or a OR, or a not ordinarily resident or a NOR. So for a resident person to be termed as an ordinary resident, that there are two conditions and he should satisfy either of these conditions. First is he should be a resident in India in at least 2 years for the last 10 financial years. So for the financial year we are checking in leaving that financial year in the preceding 10 financial year, he should be a resident in any of the two financial years. Or if he does not fulfill this condition, then his total stay in India during the preceding 7 financial years should be at least equal to 2 years or 730 days. So a person is a resident And to call that person as a ordinarily resident, he should be a resident in at least 2 years out of the last 10 preceding financial years, or his stay should have been 730 days or more in last 7 financial years. Then only we can term that person as a ordinary resident. If he does not fulfill any of these condition or any of these conditions, he will be termed as a not ordinary resident. Although he is a resident, but he will be termed as a NOR. He is a not ordinarily resident. So this is what is the concept of residential status in case of individual. So to summarize, residential status in case of individual, we could say in general condition, if your stay in India is 182 days or more during the financial year, you are a resident. Or if you do not fulfill this condition and your stay in India in the previous financial year is 60 days or more, and in the preceding four financial year is 365 days or more, you will be termed as a resident in India. However, this 60 days condition is not applicable for three categories of person. So, person first, where is a working going outside India for working as a true member of Indianship or for going for the purpose of employment, or a person of Indian origin or citizen of India who has come to visit India and his income does not exceed 15 lakh rupees. So, in case of these persons, if the total stay in India is less than 182 days, they will be immediately termed as non-resident. For person of Indian origin, we saw the special condition of 15 lakh rupees income and 120 days condition. So you need to additionally check the income and the days stay with respect to 120 days. And then we saw how resident could be again further classified into ordinarily resident and not ordinarily resident. So I hope the concept of resident, not ordinarily resident, non-resident is clear to you. Do let me know in case of any concerns. Thank you.